Hey, I'm Ben. I'm founder of GEKCO, and we kind of thought it'd be worth doing a bit of a video introducing who I am, why I created GEKCO. You've probably seen me in a few of the vids recently, chatting about products that we do, or initiatives, or why we did this, why we did that, and just thought it'd be nice to put a name to the face and give you a bit of an insight into, I guess, who I am and why we created GEKCO. So. Personally, I have a bit of an unhealthy obsession with trying to fix stuff. I think I often see like solutions as not very perfect, and often think that we can be doing better or we should be doing better. And often that leads me to try and do better myself. And the story's no different really with GEKCO. Personally, I'm a bit of an all sports guy. I love mountain running, cycling, climbing, surfing. You name it, I've probably got an unhealthy obsession with it. Speaking of which, about half my personality is coffee. And GEKCO, I basically started off by Block, where we are now, is my local. Ben Meeks, who's the owner, knew relatively well just from climbing here. And we were already working with him in a little kind of capacity, and he basically had a massive problem happen during the end of COVID. So when lockdown eased up and all the gyms swapped to liquid only, basically no one knew, whether it was gym owners or climbers, that liquid at that time, the only ones that existed, contained resin. Basically every single one of them had rosin, POF, colophony, whatever you call it. Pine tree sap is ultimately what it is. It's the same thing that to many people arguably ruined font, definitely changed it permanently. It sticks to rocks, fills in all the friction, all the pores, makes it really slippy, really glossy, and ultimately hard to climb on unless you're also using resin again. And shouldn't really be in liquid chalk. It was in these products because it makes them cheaper and easier to make, and all of the gyms in the UK stocked a liquid that had resin in. So when everyone went liquid only, within 2 weeks, the holds in walls were just wrecked, like absolutely ruined. You know, think the worst hold that you've ever tried to hold onto that feels like a dual texture, that just is slippy and you can't get any friction, and no matter how many times you brush it, you just cannot restore any friction to that hold, probably because it's got resin stuck to it from bad quality liquid chalks. And ultimately Ben saw this problem happen in City Block and couldn't bear it. Obviously holds are very expensive. On top of that, it's like a bad user experience to go into a wall and climb on holds that just feel like horrible. So he wanted to find a solution, and that didn't exist. So he reached out to me. He knew I was a bit of a product geek, a bit of a solutions guy trying to fix stuff, and knew that I also was really into my climbing. And we basically built a prototype for Ben that was resin free, and purely because we engineered it and built it from a climber's perspective, from the perspective of wanting performance and not profit. He tried it and he was just blown away, like genuinely could not believe what he was using, because it actually performed as good, if not better, than normal loose powder. And at that time, no liquid could say that, because they're just full of rubbish. So for him, it was like night and day. It was like, when can we get this? Brilliant. And that kind of just started off as a favour to Ben more than anything. It was an interesting pursuit for me to try and fix this problem. And whether we liked it or not, within the first week, Ben had told a load of his mates that also owned gyms nearby. And they were all on the phone to me like, when can we get this? Can you help us out? Can you get some bottles to us? And before we knew it, we had a business. And I guess the second thing that we'd not really appreciated was a lot of brands now that have removed resin have replaced it with just nasty thickeners that are nothing more than lubricants. They're just slippy. And even brands before that have not removed resin, the ones that had resin in, also have thickeners in, because ultimately they add a thickener, the product looks thicker, you think you're getting more chalk. Bob's your uncle, you feel like you're getting a better product. But ultimately they do just make performance worse. And again, because we designed it from a performance perspective, we never added thickeners. So you've got this product that's just alcohol, magnesium carbonate. We'd run a bottle return scheme from the beginning to try and eradicate the problem of plastic waste. And it was just a great product, and it kind of grew what then was the business itself, because it was so good that it spoke for itself. It spread on word of mouth alone. People loved the product. They'd tell their friends. Likewise with gym owners. And that's kind of what created GEKCO. And after that became kind of like not every day, but we became established, we then kind of thought, we've got something here. What else could we be doing in this space? And funnily enough, again, like, I'd been climbing 12 years at that time, and I'd never really considered my loose chalk and how bad or good for the environment that was. I was at the time using Friction Labs, which like ultimately costs a hell of a lot of money. I'd gone on to that from Moondust, and I could never really go back to Moondust. I'm very sweaty, and I'd just sweat through with Moon before I even got the climb. And so I was using Friction Labs, expensive but arguably good stuff. And with GEKCO, the big problem that we saw with the market was we've got a base powder, a magnesium carbonate, that performs as good as Friction Labs, as good as the best brands out there, Tokyo Powder. But we can supply it at a much cheaper price because, for many reasons, we go direct. We don't have the same ridiculous profit expectations as many brands. And ultimately, also, the big problem that we saw was the packaging. So all these chalks sold chalk in completely unrecyclable packaging that was either like metallized plastic. Yeah, it looks great, but it's really bad for the environment. You can't do anything with it. Or they sold it in straight up plastic, which on paper is recyclable, but basically no countries in the world, as we've seen recently, can really deal with recycling plastic that well, or at least films. And we kind of wanted to fix that. So we thought, we've got the base product that's great, it's seawater processed, which is better for the environment, the performance is there, it's as good as the best brands. We can put it in a much more sustainable packaging format. And so we sourced a paper recyclable format that was fully paper recyclable, still had a membrane that kept the product dry, so you spilt a bit of water on it or you're in a humid environment, you're not going to have a problem. But ultimately, you could still put it in anybody's recycling, in any UK household, European household, US, any relatively developed country that has a recycling system recycles paper, and its efficiency and its engagement is high. So we went with this paper format that was just very much different to what was out there. And since then, you've had many brands swap to what they call sustainable packaging, which at the moment is often just a plastic that's covered in paper. There's too much of the plastic, there's a seal, there's bioplastic in there, and ultimately the end product is completely unrecyclable. They can't advertise it as recyclable because it's not recyclable. It's got some weird sustainable logo on it or biodegradable credential on it, which doesn't mean anything. It's greenwashing. And I guess that just made us double down on our mission, because we saw none of the brands out there as doing genuinely what was the right thing for the environment, for performance, and for climbers. Like, no brands have got an affordable chalk that is high performance, that is good for the environment. And so it lit even a bigger fire inside me to really go, we need to be taking GEKCO on a bigger stage here, because we are trying to do things the right way, the best way that you possibly can do. And ultimately, we should be in more climbers' chalk bags. So here we go.